please welcome Orion Platform Product Manager, Jeff Blank.
Hey, Patrick, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. If you can tell, I'm just a little bit excited about this. We've got over a dozen features to go over. So why don't we just jump straight in and let's talk about the new modern dashboards, because I mean, look at this, right? So not just column spanning, we can edit these.
Time out. Bring it back a little bit. We've got a lot to cover, a lot of great enhancements. The platform in general has tons of stuff to cover, and we have a little bit of time. Let's go through it in a little bit of more of a progression before we jump right in.
Okay, all right, that's fair. That's right. And we're going to be talking about over a dozen new features that have been added across not just the network monitoring and management tools, systems, databases, and security. So we are going to get into these in depth in this episode. But why don't we start actually with maybe the thing that it seems subtle, but for existing customers, especially ones with really complex environments, is the new installer. And when I ran this thing, I mean, I got to see it, for months early and play with it. But the first time I did my upgrade, I was really surprised at how smooth that experience was.
Yeah, Patrick, that's a great place, right? Because where do we start all these features enhancements other than how do we get there first, right? And first, our customers really need to upgrade and have that experience. And we did a lot of work around this piece to make sure that that is a more pleasurable experience and give back customers that critical thing that none of us have enough of, which is time, right? So the first piece, that I'd like to bring up is we're bringing back an old friend, right? In the 2020.2 release, that we're talking about here, right? We're bringing back support for Windows 2012 and SQL 2012 database, right? We still have a large portion of our customers running 2012, and this really just removes a blocker to make sure they get to take advantage of this great release. All right. The next thing that we did, which seems small, but like you said, you experienced it. I know you're tinkering in your lab, right? Was improvements in the configuration wizard, right? Really, that's all about optimizing the behind-the-scenes functionality to ensure we're expediting, again, the time it takes to complete that task. I don't want to get too big into the technical weeds, but we did a whole lot of things to optimize that performance. One of those we call in-house configuration wizard parallelization, right?
Right.
That's really about multitasking, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know you cook a lot, you talk about it, but you probably don't start that venture by going to the grocery store, picking up one ingredient at a time, coming back to the house, going back to the grocery store, right? So in essence, that's kind of what we did here. We made sure that we were taking advantage of the resources that are sitting idle when they're not supposed to be, right? So it's shown massive amounts of improvements. I know in one example of my lab from a previous run of 20 minutes down to 5 minutes. So, it's quite a drastic change.
Well, and because you're essentially running that same code, even with the new remote install capability, that code runs on your remote pollers as well. So you're seeing not only benefits just to that initial install, but especially if you have remote pollers, that is a multiplicative gain in time or reduction of time in the overall end-to-end deployment for an update.
Exactly right. And we didn't start there. And you already made the point to bring this up. We wanted to combine those improvements, those types of things with something else. In this case, we wanted to pay special attention to our customers that have those more complex environments, right? You just mentioned polling engines and any scalability engine, whether it's additional web servers, HA, right? Those running all those different types of scalability engines and those larger distributed environments, they end up with a larger task when it's time to upgrade. And we needed to do something about that. So using the power of centralized upgrades, we introduced a new workflow and a special feature that I really want to highlight here because I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think less talking, just show it because it is so straightforward to use now.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, Patrick. So this is kind of where we start out here. And if you're unfamiliar with centralized upgrades, it was delivered a release back or so, and really allowing customers to take advantage of this new My Orion deployment page where you can see deployment health and some other things. But I wanted in particular to talk about kind of the new UI and workflow that we're looking at here on the screen, right? In this case, the updates and evaluations tab is representing what I have running in my environment and what I have the option to upgrade to if I so desire. Now, many customers didn't realize that in the past they could use this tool to kind of identify what they need to do to ready themselves for the upgrade. We didn't have a clear decision-making tree, and they really were hesitant to start an upgrade. No joke, I did that a few times myself, so I can understand why they ran into that piece. Right?
Well, it's also nice because you know what you have. So a lot of times you'll see us talking about new features and you're like, well, what version do I have? Or maybe even if there's a module that's gotten, kind of out of phase, you can come to this page and you'll know exactly what you're currently running.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you can see that here in this example. And what I have and what I want to focus on is kind of the three options down here at the bottom, right? We have a make a plan, pre-stage, or upgrade and eval now, right? If you're a customer ready to go, you're already full steam ahead, you have that third option. You know what that does. It walks you through the normal process. And all of these follow the same type of workflow. But if I choose make a plan, for example, what this does is bring up the next page, which gives me even more detail about what I have available, the products that I have installed in this particular lab, what they will be upgraded to. I can even choose to install additional product evaluations, learn more about products I may not be aware about, right? It just gives us opportunity to do that, right here from a single screen.
And one of the things that I love most about this view too is the release notes button right there is going to take you directly to the release notes for that module for that release. So, I mean, you can go out to the customer success center and it's pretty easy to navigate, but here there's none of that. You literally click on the release notes tab and you can see what those features are, if there's been like scalability improvements or maybe requirements or recommendations. That's kind of the details of if you are interested in the details, if you're not just say 1, 2, 3 install, that's a great way to read those notes if you want to.
100% agree. And I think it's a great point too. Once we continue, and if I choose the next button down at the bottom of the screen, what we'll automatically do, and I have a smaller environment in this example, but we'll make sure that we can connect to each of those scalability engines. You can see I have an HA server here. There was an additional polling engine. And if there is a problem, what it does is tell me, hey, we were unable to connect to that for some reason. That might be something you were unaware of, something you can go troubleshoot. You can choose to exclude servers, all those types of things. But it gives us the ability to make sure, one, you have access to all the things that you need access to.
Well, it's great because if you maybe have a lab puller or something else that maybe you've sort of forgotten about, that normally you'd go through your upgrade process and the upgrade might stall right there, you can make sure that that's not going to happen because your connectivity to all of those is available before you ever start.
Exactly right. The next page here is, of course, the systems checks. Many customers might be familiar with this. This is really our health checks, making sure things are okay, right? On that polling engine, do you have enough disk space? Is there some sort of other update that you need to be aware of? We do have indications that tell you, hey, something to check out before you proceed, and of course, do database backups and all those types of things. So this is a handy page to make sure you do take the time to read through. This will make sure your upgrade goes smoothly.
Yeah, one of the things that was a surprise to me was I saw a whole bunch of updates are required, right? And we were talking about Windows updates were required. Mm-hmm. And on the one hand, I was thinking, I just don't want to have to go do those. I don't want to do those platform updates. But on the other hand, we don't live in a world anymore where uptime for years is a good thing. Mm-hmm. And so it is a reminder that there are a lot of times just OS platform updates, or maybe there's some other software running on that server or that workstation that really ought to get upgraded. So yeah, sometimes you're like, okay, I am going to have to go and bounce that machine, but I probably should have done it anyway for security fixes or something else. So it'll tell you that ahead of time so that if you have like pending updates or restart required that were already sitting on that machine, we're not going to require a restart, but they're already sitting on that machine, you can take care of that first. So again, that's going to prevent something where there's an OS level blocker to the Orion upgrade.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And this is really where I have you can see there at the bottom options, right? We chose that make a plan to start with. And now I have the ability to do a number of things. I can print this out, right? For those of us that have strict change controls, if I need documentation or something like that, I have the ability to actually print this out and go run and take care of all these tasks, right? I have 30 polling engines with low disk space or something like that. I can go take care of all those tasks, come back and run these checks again and be fine to go, right? Or I have the option to proceed with what we really want to talk about, that start downloading files. Right? This is the option to pre-stage your environment. And what this is about is many customers during their upgrades, they have to schedule, we won't lie about it, maybe days, maybe weekends, maybe little bit longer, right, to accomplish these upgrades in these very complex environments, right? You've heard that
Right.
before, haven't you?
If you've got 30 or more remote pollers, there's just download time to get the bits onto those machines. Yeah.
Exactly right. And customers in the past, what they used to do is take the installers and move them to the servers and kind of do all that work themselves. But that still takes time. And why not take that out of the customer's hand and make it easy for them? And basically, we're going to do it automatically through the web console and through centralized
Well,
upgrades.
that's a great point, because this is something that you all had worked on in the last couple of releases, and there's a great thread, a couple of them out on Thwack, that actually explained how to do that deployment manually. And the feedback from customers was, this is fantastic. This has cut a third or more out of the overall end-to-end deployment after clicking update. So essentially what you did here was took that best practice and automated it for everyone, right? So
Exactly
that's,
right.
again, one of those things that is a process that came out of Thwack and working with the PM team, and now it's literally just under that button.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So when we click that button, the same process ensues. But what you'll see here is, hey, it's gone through. We're pre-staging files, and this can be done again before that maintenance window, before you've scheduled that downtime, right? Just to get the bits where they need to go, right? So you can see in this case, I excluded a particular server, and you have the option to do that and come back later and update that. But it's going to run through, do its downloading, tell you the progress. It's always going to start with the main polling engine, and then what it'll do is sequentially run five in groups of 5 all the rest of your scalability engines and get those bits where they need to go.
And once again, those downloads are coming from the main Orion server itself. It's not going back out on the internet every time, so you can make sure the bits are the right version.
And once that's complete, it's pretty easy. You see download complete, you can move on with your day, go back, come back a week later, a month later, whatever you prefer. And the beauty here is there is some intelligence built in as well. If you come back, let's say, a month from now, and all of a sudden we've released something new, right? The next release is available and next updates, it will tell you and say, hey, you have the option to either proceed with your upgrade or go through the process again, get the right bits, and we'll even make sure, hey, we take the bits that existed and we just go grab the bits that we don't have, ipso facto, and then allow you to perform the upgrade, right? Now, this real quick, I just wanted to highlight a couple screenshots because we do have those advanced users out there, and many times they are those customers that are using these more complex environments, and we do have the ability to script this through the Orion SDK. Yeah, I know you're getting excited, exactly. So that is available for you. You can walk through the same steps, the process. You can even specify whether or not you want to do the upgrades of your current running environment. You can specify, hey, you just want to install evaluations, specify the script argument. It's all documented and out there.
And so you're showing this over here on the right-hand side. That's Swickle Studio. So again, that's showing you what's going to be executed or creating the example scripts that you can cut and paste into the platform of your choice.
Exactly right.
Okay, I'm not saying I could get lost in APIs all day, but let's go back and talk about the new modern dashboards, because this is something that has saved me a bunch of time creating new dashboards. I think the point is, one, you get new advanced widgets that weren't available before, but two, I like to really do differentiated dashboards for different groups, especially like build something for a manager, for example, and like get them to spend their time looking at that instead of looking at the big dashboard. So I get a lot more reuse in addition to functionality I didn't get before.
Yeah, I know, Patrick. You've been patiently waiting, and it's here, so we can talk about it, right? Yeah, what you see up on the screen is a great view of that. It's just an example, right? My colleague Tony Johnson is another platform PM, and him and the dev team have done this first version of what we refer to as modern dashboards, right? These data-driven dashboards were developed to provide that even greater level of flexibility. Of course, there's a lot of widgets that people have always wanted in there. One of my favorites is the donut chart, so don't even get me started. But this was built with performance in mind, using a grid-based layout system so we can have that vertical and horizontal scaling however we want. And this is really, it is a lot of fun to play with, right?
Okay, but even before you do that, this is updating in real time, right? These widgets are updating in real time, and we call these widgets now, not resources, right?
Yes, correct. We really do refer to them as widgets, and what you're seeing here is an example lab, but what you don't even realize is this is actually an EOC too. So this is actually working in the enterprise operations console in my example here. Tony had a couple other labs I could choose from, but in general, I know you guys plan to maybe have a bigger lab episode just on this topic at a later date, but we did want to chat about it because it's really important. It's got a lot of comments and great feedback on Thwack already. Again, you have complete control to, edit the dashboard. I can drag more widgets. I can change that size out if I can grab a corner here. I could change that size of that widget, adjust how things are laid out. It's pretty neat. If I wanted to edit the widget, we have all sorts of ways to choose, whether that's a chart option like a pie, or we want the legend below, or we want to customize the data model. And this is, a little bit more advanced. There's a graphical query builder, a hand edit SQL option. There's lots of ways in which you can format this stuff. It's super, super flexible and really responsive. You can see examples where I even did things like, simple table widgets, the KPI, or what people refer to as the big number widget, right? These are always helpful, exactly like you were talking about. Executives love to see this stuff. Give me big, just clear, concise data information on a screen. Let me know what's going on. These are always super helpful. Of course, our time series widgets, even vertical and horizontal options to scroll, whether we want, bar charts and different tables, and it's pretty great to be able to see this and where we're heading with a new modern UI.
Well, and scroll back down there to the bottom, because these are available in NOC views as well, right? So if you wanted, for example, the good old network device detail view that we've relied on for years, it is available too. So if you want to combine traditional resources, or in this case, I would use a dynamic group that would then be a filter on that list. So if I had a particular set of resources that I wanted to make sure were present in my top of my NOC view, along with these summary views or the big number widgets, it really lets you customize that in a way that really I don't think was possible before.
Agreed, 100%. It's really cool. I can't wait to see what happens next. If anybody's interested and want to get involved in the conversation, make sure to reach out to us via Thwack and stuff. Tony's got a great post out there where he walks through some examples in detail, and I'm sure you guys are going to talk about this more at a later time.
Yeah, that is one thing about this release, and definitely both check out the release notes, look at the Customer Success Center, but there's also the Thwack post that we'll link here that actually have those step-by-step with screenshots, and a lot of them are animated GIFs so that you can kind of see how they work visually. Definitely go check those out. I mean, if we're going to be doing drill downs into this for eons probably on lab, but yeah, definitely check those out because the level of detail there and follow along examples are great. Okay, so next, we got to talk about maps. We keep talking about maps 2.0, and it's so funny because our new Orion Maps, but they have grown so much over the last couple of releases, and this one really does feel different. Like some of the things that you've been able to do with iconography and color and background and the rest of it really let you customize these in a way that I don't even think the old maps would have let you do. So let's talk about those.
Yeah, let's do it. This is definitely a little bit of as you would say, a passion project of mine, and there's been a lot going on here. I know we even teased a little bit at times. I might be able to show you how to travel back in time here in just a second. I have tons to cover here, and I really want to take the time to go through it.
Yeah, so you're starting here on a view. This is the map editor, and if you were upgraded to the latest previous release, which would have been in 2019.4, you'd see a view that looks like this. So what you're going to do is walk us through how it's changed and some of the new capabilities built on top of this.
Right. I think the best way, right, like I was going to make a joke and say I had this PowerPoint presentation, right, but I know you would come with pitchforks and everything like that, and this is really all about being visual, right? The Orion Maps project is about taking the wealth of data in Orion, those relationships and all those metrics and stats, giving it structure, right? Data is just boring by itself, giving it context, turning it into more actionable information, right? So this is exactly where we're going to begin. This is what you might see if you, like you said, were 2019.4 and you could accomplish this. Now, it looks a little bit different, and I'll go through some of those nuances here. And one of the things that I noticed right away is there's a connection that I expect to see, and I want to do that. right? This was available in the last release, and I think you and I both talked about how much we like this feature. So I'm going to walk through how to make a manual connection when automated topology just didn't happen to do it.
Or there is no way that topology could have done that, especially for a composite application where you are the only one who knows how those packets are traveling.
Exactly. And that's a perfect example because I'm technically not even monitoring any interfaces on this particular node. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a topology connection because this is how my infrastructure is set up. And what you'll see here in the new map editor, right, in the 2020.2 release is a little bit different view of the toolbar. There were a couple control actions before that kind of popped in, popped out. We made sure they were visible so you knew they were available to you. And of course, based on selections, things activate, right? So I'm going to click connect objects here. And over here on my switch, I know exactly what port I want to connect to, right? I'm going to connect actually on this FA011 here, apply. And then over on the Hyper-V server, when I click configure here, you'll see that it actually pulls up and tells me I don't have any information. It's because I'm not monitoring any interfaces. Now, I could go correct that, monitor the interface if I want. But what I'm going to do is kind of trick it. And this might be important for those users when they have devices that they only have an interface on one side, right? Out to the cloud or something like that, Patrick. So I can kind of trick this. So I'm going to choose the same device on the other side and the interface there, and I'm going to click apply. Now, the little toggle here allows me to say show ingress, and that's really so this topology connection that you can see examples of in the background don't show the same metrics visibly on the screen and what I'm trying to get after. Now, I'm also not going to do this for this particular use case, but I wanted to bring up these two bullets because this is very important. For this map only, obviously, exactly as it seems, right? It's for this map only. This second piece is something that you and I get really excited about, right? It's for all Orion. Right? And what that means is when I create that connection, and go ahead, Patrick. You were
Well, no, I was going to say I have found this to be really useful because I end up building a lot of maps for other folks, right? And so if it's something where I want to establish that connection, it is always, in this case, maybe between those two physical interfaces, it is always going to be the same. And then any other map or a perf stack view or an app stack view or something else that could actually inherit that connection, everybody's going to see that. But if it's something where it's an application that's different, maybe it's an application focused map, or it's a network focused map, or there's VPN traffic or out to cloud where the logical topology of that map is different in terms of the services that that map represents, that lets you have both the sort of default connection plus specific connections by, map by map.
Exactly. And you're right. When I choose this for all of Orion, it shows up in the NPM topology widget right along the rest of the topology connections that were discovered too. So, it makes sense for a user. And that way, like you said, if I go build another map or somebody's looking in the contextual maps that are in the static subviews on a node details page, that connection shows up, right? So it's a real cool way to allow you to use a design tool and a mapping tool to define topology in the product. All right, so we'll click create here, and then we'll move on to some of the other things. So Patrick, what we have here on the right-hand side are what we refer to as the property panels. Now, the map has a property panel itself. Every entity on the canvas will have a property panel, and these allow us to do those custom enhancements that we want. It's about making this map make sense for my organization and my team, and what makes the most sense for us, right? I have the option to do backgrounds now, and this is really so if I choose a background image, or I can choose a background color. The background image, in this case, if I chose that, would pop up on the back, and it wouldn't be selectable when I do like my lasso or something like that, so it doesn't drag it all over the screen and those types of things. For those users that we're aware of, that we can insert images as well, right? So there's a difference there, and it just makes it a little bit more simple. In this case, I'm just going to choose a color. I'm a little partial to blue. I always end up doing that. That's what we're going with, Patrick, so hopefully that works for you. So the next thing here, this is, again, we have the toolbar here, and I want to highlight certain things, right? Like there's unique features, undo, redo, that's nowhere else in Orion, and that's really more in a drawing tool. And those are the things that we're trying to blend here, that Visio-esque type drawing with the monitoring solution, so you do not have to leave this tool. There's ability to select all, from entities to shapes, right? We can insert shapes. You actually have options to do alignment. So if we add shapes and those types of things, this is that bring forward, front to back type control, again, to where it's just easy, simple to construct and customize this map. First, let's start with just scaling, right? So if you could see here, I kind of have these named fairly decently, right? DC. So this is obviously some of my domain controllers doing ADM connections, right? From application dependency
The
connections.
importance of these objects is not the same. They are not equal, and it is not flat.
100%, 100%. So I want these to stand out a little bit more. And of course, I have the infrastructure that is impacted or could impact these and their performance, as well as that network infrastructure. And you can see the map updating on certain things going on in the environment. But I'm actually going to select these guys here, and I just want to take a look at what I have to do in the properties panel. And we'll start with size and position, right? So you could see lots of different options here. And I'm actually going to make these quite a bit bigger. So I can type in, we can get pixel perfect. It enlarges those items. There's a couple other things that I want to make a little bit bigger. Again, everything can be done in bulk. So you can see when I select one object, it tells me what that is. If I hold the control keys like you're used to in Visio or whatnot, I can make these items bigger. I also have the lasso object here where I can select these guys. And then of course it shows me 3 objects, and I'm going to make these just slightly bigger too. Again, if we're dealing with images or I'm inserting shapes and squares, which we may get to in this example, I have options to toggle the aspect ratios so I can change those shapes. You can even find out exactly what the X and Y coordinate is, because there's been times where I feel like it's lined up, but something seems quite off. I can get it pixel perfect, right, Patrick?
Yeah, and I just love that because you can use size as a visual indication of relative importance or how much time you should spend observing that. Because in this case, there is a little bit of what's this packet loss on that bottom transit link. And if that icon is large, then maybe I ought to start there first troubleshooting. If I'm going into a warning state in and out, but I'm not seeing any other application issues, well, maybe we'll get to that later. But like that idea of being able to come for someone on the team who maybe has never seen a map before, spent time on it, they get an incident report, they're trying to do troubleshooting. The first thing when you come to a map is being able to visually represent where to start troubleshooting saves a ton of time.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, if this were it, maybe it'd be a little bit cooler, but we're not going to stop there, right? There's something that's really bugging me and customers, because we listened. There was a lot of things that customers really wanted, and we really got a lot of that in this release, right? And one of those things is text, right? I have some of these labels and places and things where I don't really want them. It kind of obscures, like you were saying, the view of the map and some of these items. So what's unique is I can select a number of objects. I can select this text property piece. Now, the first thing that I want to start with is this actual position, and this is the text anchoring. So here in this case, I might want to say, hey, move everything up top center, right? Mm-hmm. If I see this guy here, it's kind of combined with a ton of things, right? I'm going to say, let's go top left, right? For these guys, let's go middle right, some of our other guys were okay. These guys are just slightly off, so I can even just use a little bit of an alignment piece, little trick, and kind of move that out. And if I stop there, look how much better the map looks just from that piece. It's kind of drastic. I can do a select all here. Of course, I can use select all entities, so it'll select everything, go back to text. And one thing that I want to change against that blue background, I'm going to change this to white, right? Mm-hmm. And now look at how we're starting to change these. And of course, I can make it bold. I can change the font size. I can change the little fonts. And no, Patrick, I'm not going to do Comic Sans for you. I know you like that one.
I love, just for irony, that you did include Comic Sans.
Yeah, exactly. We got to have a little bit of fun around here, right? Another important piece too is that in old Network Atlas, right? We're not going to lie here. The eventual goal here is to deprecate Network Atlas. That announcement was made. It does not mean that Network Atlas is going away tomorrow in the next release, but in the future, it will probably say sayonara, right? In the meantime, we wanted to make sure we're doing some of those things as customers requested that allow us to parity Network Atlas. And in that case, I'm going to select these guys. I'm actually going to select my network gear. These are important pieces. And I'm going to go back into text. And I want to talk about this piece. This is where we can add in whatever we want. I can type in values and those types of things, but I can also click plus, and when I select multiple objects, this will be an intersection of all those objects and those entity types and all the properties associated to them. So I'm going to choose, you know what, I don't want IP address. Let's go machine type, and I'm going to add that in, insert the selected, and make sure that it gets put where I wanted it, right? And now all those have a machine type. We got to keep in mind that some of these maps might be in places where users are not going to be interacting with them, right? On a knock dashboard, like you mentioned before, and I might need more information. Now, another
if the value is blank, it just doesn't present it. So you also don't have to worry about laying out for blank spaces. It'll take care of that for you.
Exactly. Another cool piece with this is I'm going to go back in here, and I'm actually going to just grab this first thing. You can see there are some metrics in here, but a little pro tip, little behind the scenes thing. If I hold shift when I click insert selected properties, what this does is actually add a prefix and a suffix based on the units and things that I added. So now I have my average response time, 3 milliseconds, completely showing for each of these devices. And I've got a really cool map so far for that piece. To our next topic, right? This is one of those things that everybody loves, because the first question when 2019.4 came out was, can I do custom icons, right? Have you heard that before at all?
Just a couple of times. That was slightly upvoted in Thwack.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit, right? I have tons of flexibility and options here. And let's just take this group of domain controllers first. I'm going to expand this, and you can see it's got a default icon. I can actually click down, and we provide some for you. Maybe by chance I like this icon better, right? Now, you have options. What you have is ability to do shapes. So if I wanted a rectangle around this object or even a hexagon, that's what I'm using for status, is these status rings. I can change color of those. I can use a status badge if I'd like. And I want to make these a little bit bigger, but let's go ahead and do that for all my entities again. So I'm going to select that, go back into icon and say, hey, take up more of that space there. And we'll say 65 might be a good number, right? So again, it kind of takes up the available space and gives me a little bit better picture, kind of brings that in. Again, lots of flexibility. As I mentioned, if you wanted to browse and use your own icon, you can see I've actually done some here that'll let me do things with those service maps. And you see something here I want to bring up real quick. There is some really cool ways in which we could say, hey, you know what? If I wanted to have a different type of map, right? Maybe these icons aren't really what I'm after. Maybe what I want to do is have a different icon based on different statuses. So I could flip to this status piece. I can remove the need for a status ring because I'm going to be in your face. I'm going to turn off the status badge here. And what I can do is actually for each individual status, Patrick, I can customize what that might be. And in this case, I'm going to choose, I think, thumbs up, right?
Yep.
Kind of neat. For warning, I'm going to do a little warning case here. For critical, I might flip this to our down, right? And create kind of a unique paradigm where, hey, this map, maybe they don't need the iconography so much, but you can certainly see this from a knock screen, 10 feet back, 20 feet back, and it just makes, again, the possibilities endless. Right?
Well, and I've made the joke before about creating views for your management, but this is really a great way to do that, because if they just want to know that the environment is stable, right? They're looking for overall status. I mean, you care about the detail when you're troubleshooting, but it makes it really easy to provide dashboards to give them the confidence that you're doing great and that the environment and the infrastructure are healthy. And it just makes it quick to read, quick to glance at, and then they don't have to feel like they got to really get into the details. They have what they need, and then they can go on with the rest of their day.
Exactly. And to your point, I mean, look at what we're looking at here. I don't have to page jump. I don't have to go to a different module to look at things. We've incorporated things from NPM, from SAM, from VMan, from SRM, all in one place and easy to look at. And again, don't forget, people, that you can nest maps inside of each other. So you can have that simple executive roll up that's just those, again, thumbs up, thumbs down, or whatever. If I wanted to be a skull and crossbones or something to really stick out, I could do anything. So
We've
done
seen some pretty
stuff.
we've seen some pretty creative maps already from our customers, and especially during the beta period. And that was a point I did want to make too. And we talked about it in Thwack Camp last year. But the big difference, sort of in terms of overall platform performance improvements between these maps and the old maps, is the old maps had to go do that roll up, that status roll up in real time. In this case, the Orion platform is constantly recalculating that, especially with the cleanup of statuses and simplification and some of the dynamics that you have over roll up status. So that's all happening in the background in real time. And so that way, if you want to do deeply nested maps of maps of maps, you're not incurring additional query, SQL, and SWCL query time every time someone loads a page with a map. So it makes it a lot easier to just put them wherever you need them without incurring a display penalty or a processing
Tax
penalty on the overall platform.
Yep. Now, speaking of status, that was a great little segue into kind of the crescendo here, right? Because we could spend all day about this. I didn't get to show, shapes and text boxes, and we could insert images. And like you said, I have tons of examples out on Thwack. Customers are starting to share their examples. But let's get
we're gonna show a Nutanix example of that a little bit later.
Oh, nice. But there's one piece here that we haven't talked about, and that's really this track history option. Okay, Patrick, so let me see. We've gone back to kind of my summary page, and this is just my lab and just general examples, but let me see if I can find an example where you can specifically show off that time travel feature. Right?
And there you got the orange iconography for that map.
Yeah, and you see I did the blue background again. Sorry, I'm partial blue. Here's a white version. This might work, and I've paired it with, perf stack stuff. But I think I have one here where it was more similar to the map that we created. So maybe we'll stick with this, right? So again, I can choose to add more widgets to this view, this dashboard if I want to. But of course, we have view mode, which toggles me into the full screen kind of interactive mode. And this is where I can really troubleshoot, right? If I want to start hovering over items and all those types of things, I get status on associated metrics. It looks like the Active Directory application actually on these two servers is having a problem here. What about those cases where we're coming in after a weekend, Patrick, and somebody complained about something, and
it's an email, not a ticket. But I mean, that really is it. Is that troubleshooting half the time by the time you get time to look at it, especially for severity 1 issues. Some time has passed, and you need to actually go back and look. And you could go look at the histograms, but it's easier to look at it in context.
Right. I mean, if I had to jump through each one of these things and figure out what the impact was or what they impacted, right, it's a lot easier in a map. And you're right. I mean, a lot of times everything that we're doing as far as coming back to troubleshoot is reactive. So why not give customers a little bit of a heads up with this option to view history? So you have that option to enable that track history. And I can jump into this fully interactive mode, and now I can click view history of this map. And what it does is give me a new timeline down here at the bottom. So Patrick, you were complaining about an issue that happened, yesterday. Again, by default, we kind of go back 7 days in history. We kind of grab snapshots at 10-minute intervals. I can go back to when it was clean, prior to the problem. Right. You can even do some fun things and play this historical loop and watch as the little indicator at the bottom of the timeline there kind of flips through the different segments and shows me from the metrics on the map, the entities on the map, their status has changed, all the different things will recalculate and show me time after time. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and time travel is one of those things. I think the first place that it appeared was in Virtualization Manager, where you needed to be able to look at the topology for how VMs were organized. Then you saw it again in NetPath, right? So that is something that I see us continuing. I see your teams continuing to move across multiple products, and I'm always a fan whenever I see it.
Exactly right. Now, what's the next logical step here? Usually, we don't have hovers because it's not current data, right? So we figured out a unique solution to kind of give customers, a little bit added benefit. So you'll see I have, 4:23 a.m. is when that problem. I was asleep, right? This is what my administrator showed me about. I was able to use the map and go back, but what was the cause or what was the reason, and I see the thing that's down, well, I can click on this, and what it will do is automatically pull me up a perf stack using our other tool that allows us to correlate information events, gives me an hour before, an hour after that timestamp, allows me to click into this guy, and I can see there were a lot of different problems going on with ADM and the connections between other servers, and kind of start doing real-time monitoring, whatever I needed to do to isolate and identify that issue, Patrick. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the only tip there is when you create the map, there is that toggle to retain the time information or previous maps. Like
track history.
Track history.
Yep.
And you'll need to make sure you enable that. And the reason that it's not on by default is maybe you don't want to put that in the database. So that gives you the option of how much data do you want to collect versus do you want it for particular maps or not. And you turn it up, just flip that, and it'll start storing that data. Yep. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. The platform updates here, and we're going to see that now across multiple modules on Orion and some of the things that they've been able to do with these capabilities. But it's always a pleasure to get to chat, and thanks again for being a part of the segment.
Thank you very much. Hopefully we didn't take up too much of your time, Patrick, and you could squeeze everything else in. We could spend all day on this, but again, people can reach out to me on Thwack. We're very active out here. Appreciate the time and getting to show you guys this. Really had fun.